it a second for people to pop on before I get started talking, because I want to share some things, share some personal things. Hold on one second, guys. It's gonna go out for a second and I'll be right back with you, which will go into what I'm talking about. Emma was like, keep him posted. Girl, that's a whole nother story. Anywho, hi everybody. So I'm getting on here to share something very personal, and I wanted to share it, and I wanted to get on here because I'm supposed to do my live coaching at 7, and I won't be able to. So I will not be live on my Coach Chaun page. For you wonderful ladies that follow my Coach Chaun page and all of that, I will have to cancel that. So I'll make sure that I update my page, but I won't be going live because it's funny how you wake up in the morning and you think that your day is going to go one way. You have it in your mind how everything is going to go, and you think that everything is going to be kind of run-of-the-mill and everything like that. And this morning, unfortunately, I had to wake up to, I can't remember your code right now, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I woke up to several missed calls from my family, text messages, etc. Because I had to wake up to find out that my little 27-year-old cousin had died last night. So, needless to say, my morning has started off very unlike I thought it was going to be. It's been very difficult. I've been on and off the phone all morning with my family, and so yeah, so I'm coming on here because there's so much more to it than just losing a family member. We all have lost family members. I'm sure everybody on here has probably lost a family member. I lost family members in the past, and so in the midst of dealing with the grief of losing my little cousin and her being so young, there's so much more to it because unfortunately I had not been in contact with her for quite some time. The family had not been in contact with her for quite some time because she was kind of estranged from the family by, I don't want to really say by her own choosing, but by what was going on in her life. So we weren't in constant communication with her. I think the last time I talked to her was actually last month, but it was because of some other stuff that was going on in the family, so I was actually able to talk to her briefly on the phone. But I hadn't seen my cousin since last year. And to now wake up and realize I'm never going to see her again is very difficult. And the reason why I'm doing this particular video is because you guys all know, or most of you know, that I am a life coach. I'm a personal advisor. I pride myself on being there for others, and pride myself on helping people through difficult situations, and helping people with self-discovery, and helping people with working on self-awareness and all of these things. But in the midst of this, I've had to now do the same thing with myself. Sometimes when you lose someone, it causes you to start to reflect back on your relationship with that person, your connection with that person, things that you may or may not have done maybe things that you could have done. And in a way, even though Candy said she's been here for me all day, Candy has told me that I can't necessarily beat myself up. But at the same token, I've helped others mend relationships. I've helped others mend family relationships. I've helped others do all these things. And then to look back and say, I hadn't even seen my cousin since last year. I hadn't really talked to her. And I feel like I wasn't there for her like I maybe should have been. Because my cousin dealt with drug abuse. My cousin dealt with having children on her own, being a single mom. My cousin dealt with so many things. And I feel like there could have been something more that maybe myself could have done. So now I'm on my way to Chicago because my family we now have to try to figure out what we're going to do, because as much as Candy and I have done videos about financial literacy and all this, we are unfortunately in a situation where my baby cousin didn't have life insurance and all those things. And so now we are all having to try to figure out what we're going to do. So not only do I have to try to be strong for myself, for my grandmother who's almost 90 years old. This was another one of her babies in her tribe that she has lost. And keep in mind that my aunt, we lost my aunt, 7 years ago. It was the same year that her mother, which would be her mother. So she's been dealing with the loss of her mom for 7 years now. I just can't imagine what she was dealing with. I still have my mother. I lost my father when I was very young, but she had just lost her father last year. So she was without her mom, she was without her father, and then dealing with everything else that she was dealing with. And she leaves behind children of her own. So it's a lot. Can I say something? You sure can. It's a lot. And I wanted to make sure I came on here to let everybody know, because I didn't want to just say, oh, I'm canceling the coaching session and not share anything, because I'm hoping that in the midst of me being open and transparent, that in the midst of my ramblings, this may help somebody else at the same time. Because I tell you guys all the time, when I do coaching sessions with people and I pull things out, or I come across something, or I feel like it's something that could be beneficial for those of you who do follow me as a life coach, I'm hoping that me being open and honest and kind of transparent through this situation will shed a light on something for someone else. Candy wants to say something, so let Candy say something, and then I'll come back.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at the road. I'm trying to make sure Chaun gets to the city safely. The only thing that I wanted to add was a few things I wanted to add. I wanted to add that I definitely encourage Chaun to go live. I think far too many times we have tried to do videos and we got polished. You know, we went, we combed our hair, you know, we put lotion on our face. You guys seen us sitting at the table and everything appeared to be a certain way, and it was 100%. What you seen was what you got. But the truth of the matter is, I think there's as big a lessons to be learned as you guys seeing what happens when the camera is off as you do when you learn and listen to what we say when the camera is on. So I'm not exactly sure what Chaun titled this video, but I would call this is what happens when the camera is off. And the truth of the matter is, you guys see the polished, educated version of Chaun, and Chaun comes from and represents a lot of what America is made of. And people always talk about what you see in Chicago or what you see in different cities of the country or what you see in the black community. And the truth of the matter is, Chaun comes from a very loving family, but just like everybody else's family, they got problems just like we got problems, just like you got problems, and everybody has problems. But a lot of times we judge people based on what we know about them. So somebody who hears her cousin's story would say she was 27, she was strung out on drugs, or she was on drugs, or whatever the case may be. But what a lot of times we miss, and we miss in this country, is what led the person to that. And I'm not making excuses or I'm not saying anything, but so many times we judge people based on where we meet them, and we don't learn what their story was before they got there. And so God has dealt with me on so many different levels, and I'll tell you guys my story and what's been happening outside of us doing our last video and some of the things that have happened. I'll tell you guys that later, because this is not the time for that. But God has been dealing with me on so many levels of my spirit of judgment. I constantly judged people. I said I didn't, but I really did. And when Chaun and I were together, when we were married, this was that branch of the family that I was just like, oh my God, it's always something. It's always something. But the truth of the matter is, until you can walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, you have no business judging them. So I spent this morning apologizing to this woman because I judged her cousin. Now her cousin, when she died yesterday, was 27. I'm 37. I already got 10 years on this baby. Number two, both of my parents to this day are still living. You know, although my father wasn't as active as I would have loved him to be, he's still living, and if I need to find him, I can find him. This baby didn't have that. I was never born into poverty. I was born into a middle-class life. This baby grew up as a young black girl in Chicago with a single mom in poverty who was also on drugs. You know what I'm saying? Like, this baby was born with strikes against her. So there's no wonder why, if you meet her at the age of 27, this is what you'll find. You'll find a duplication of that. So I had to apologize to Chaun, and I have to make it right with certain members of her family, because but for God, there go I, right? And so far too many times we judge people based on the life experience that we have. I can't sit with my fat 37-year-old self and judge somebody for not being where I am if you didn't have the opportunities that I had. So even though my father wasn't as present as I would have liked him to be, I still had grandparents that helped my mom raise me. I had all of these things, and so there was a lot of people that were pouring into me that are responsible for why I am who I am. And so I think so many times we sit in the judgment seat, and God had to literally put a mirror in front of my face and was like, oh, you think you better than somebody? You really want to do that? You think you better than somebody? So it's one of those situations where Chaun has showed up for me in every aspect of my life whenever I needed her. There's no place on this earth I'd rather be today than next to her and by her side. Because when I needed somebody, she was always there for me. When everybody in her family needs somebody, she dropped everything and go. So she's beating herself up about not being able to be there. But the part that she not telling is, you know, when this young girl's kids needed clothes, we were coming through. We were coming through. You know, when she needed anything, we were doing what we could when we could. You know, Chaun was there in every aspect of how she could possibly be there. And so I told her, you can't walk around with guilt or judgment for why people made some of the choices that they made. That's not your fault. That's not your fault. But I told her, instead of you trying to be polished and just putting something on the page and saying, hey, meet me on my page for the next coaching moment, this is the next coaching moment. Because while we're trying to help everybody else get their life together, we have to show you how ours ain't. Mine ain't, hers ain't, but this is our journey on us getting our lives together. And as we figure out how to get our lives together, we're not doing this for clicks, we're not doing this for views, I don't care if y'all don't share the video or if nobody else outside of who watching see it. But the whole point of this video is, you might have a 27-year-old cousin. Maybe she or he ain't 27. You might have a child that may be making some decisions that you don't really care for and you ain't heard from. You might have a parent or a family member or an old friend or somebody like that. And so the point of this video is to say, don't just go on with your life and assume that tomorrow was promised, because you might get that call. Chaun got that call this morning. But for God, there go I. You might be the person who get this call next. And so with all this going on, you know, we in a pandemic. The world is crazy. People are turning and fighting against each other. You know, people are losing jobs. I mean, you name it, it's going on. And it's only because we're not getting the lesson. Whatever it is that God is trying to show us, we're not getting it. And until everybody gets somewhere and sit down and get the lesson, we're going to keep being here. We're going to keep being here. So that's all I really wanted to say. That's it. That's it. I mean, that's it.
And another thing that I definitely wanted to share with you guys is one of the things that I have always been so grateful to my family about. Like, my family has shown me, or taught me, not taught me, but shown me unconditional love. Like, Candy will tell you, like, it's some stuff that's going on in my family. And no matter what, like, when we see each other, like, nobody just be like, well, I'm done with them. Like, you know, we both share, you know, some of the issues or some of the battles that my cousin faced. And, you know, I've also shared that my mom, you know, battled drugs before. And all these things, like, everybody makes bad choices. But one of the things that I can say about my family, and I'm so grateful to each and every one of them, is they have shown me unconditional love. And so when I say that, you know, there was things and there was choices that my cousin made, it did not matter. Like, to this day, like, I loved my cousin. I love my cousin, and I don't care what choices she made, what she did, what bad decisions she made, etc., because at the end of the day, we all do it. I never lost any love for my cousin at all. And so for some would look at that and be like, oh, she made all these bad choices or what have you. Or you may have somebody in your family where you like, oh, he or she made all these bad choices. I'm good, so whatever happens to them, you know, whatever. Like, you can't do that. And Candy has already, you know, mentioned that when what she was saying. Like, if you have somebody in your family, in your life, or what have you, like, it's not the time to be judgmental or to just turn your back or just be like, whatever. Like, you're not supposed to do stuff to the detriment of yourself, but at the same token, you don't lose love for people that are close to you or that mean something to you, no matter what bad decisions they make, because you made bad decisions yourself.
I'm telling you, the same grace that you want God to extend to you, you got to extend that to others.
All the time.
That's what I'm learning.
All the time. The only thing that you may do differently is you may move differently. Like, maybe y'all not going and having tea and crumpets every day. Like, I get that. But at the same token, you don't lose love for them. No matter what. It's just like a parent does their child. Like if you ask a mom or a father or what have you, when they have a child and their child makes bad decisions or they end up incarcerated or just whatever it is, a parent don't lose love for their child. And it's no different than your family members or anybody else in your life. It's no different. Because then you're saying, I love you except until you make this decision. Or I love you until you do this. Or I love you until you don't return my call. Like whatever it is, that's conditional. It's very much so, very, very much so conditional. And I don't believe in that. And it's so funny because I've had people in my life or whatever, and people have known like things that they've done to me, and they be like, how can you still be talking to that person? Because it was a bad choice. They made a bad choice, it was a bad decision, and whatever. So I more than likely will be sharing some other things once I'm like in a little bit better headspace. And you may actually even see me doing some things because I like I said, when this happened, like I had to take a moment and really reflect on a lot of things. And there's some relationships that I need to strengthen. There are some like with my mom, for example. Like me and my mom don't have a strained relationship in any means, but I don't talk to my mom like I should. I don't spend time with my mom like I should. Like my mom's birthday is Wednesday. Like my sisters, they were like my babies. Like I treated my sisters like my daughters. And you know, there's a huge age gap between us. We're 13 and 16 years apart, so now we ain't running in the same circles. But at the same token, like this has shown me that I can't run from what I came from. Like, yeah, I live in a suburb of the city, you know, this, that, and the third. But at the same token, this is where I came from. And I'm not saying that I lost where I came from or I don't understand or remember where I came from. But at the same token, it's so easy that when you pull yourself out of a particular situation, it's so easy to not want to go back to it. But you can't forsake those that you came from. Like, you just can't. So it's easy for me to be like, well, I ain't going to the city. Look at what's happening in the city. Like, I'm good. You can't do that either. So, thank you so much to everybody that have sent their condolences and everything like that. I appreciate that so very much. But yeah, it's definitely a sad day. I'm gonna miss my baby cousin. I don't know if I want to do that right now. She was a sweetheart, and she was smart, and she was creative, and she had a good heart. Despite everything, she had a good heart, and I'm gonna miss her. Her, and it saddens me that the last time I talked to her, which I believe was last month, it was the last month or month before, but I talked to her briefly on the phone, and I wish it had been in person. Last time I saw my cousin in person, I was taking her to her father's funeral. It's the last time I saw her in person. I appreciate everybody's thoughts and prayers. Thank you for listening. I will be back to share more because Candy just asked me something that I think will also be another teachable moment. There's so many in here that I can share, go over. But yeah, I just wanted to come and let people know that no, I will not be doing live coaching with Coach Chaun tonight. And this is why, because I'm dealing with real life coaching stuff right now. So, is there anything else that you want to add? Okay. So I hope that at some point somebody got something out of this. I give you the task, or I give anybody in the comment section the task of thinking about somebody that they have not talked to in a long period of time, or think about somebody that you had, your last interaction was not so positive, or think about that person that you have a grudge towards, or just whatever. I urge you, or I task you with taking the time to not only forgive that person if you felt like they wronged you in some way, but I also task you in reaching out to them and just taking the steps to mend that. Am I saying that you have to be best friends with the person again? Not necessarily, but take the time to understand and know that if you care about them, you should still care about them. Try to work through whatever the issues are. Forgive them if they wronged you. Ask for their forgiveness if you wronged them. Okay, let's get up on that. And just see how that feels, and see how that does. See what that will do for you, because you will find that it will be a weight lifted off of you, and you'll find an inner peace within yourself that you may not otherwise get if you don't, and if you continue to hold on to whatever that anguish or hurt or pain or whatever it is. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to share. And I may go through you guys' comments as the day progresses, and I want to kind of go back and read some of them, and I will respond. But I appreciate you guys, and like I said, I will be back. I don't know if it'll be today, but I will be back.